Out front tonight, what's Trump afraid of? The president going on a nearly 5-minute rant about the subpoena of his son, Donald Trump Jr. A subpoena from the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee. Trump is in a furor on defense tonight.
Mr. President, as you saw, the Senate Intelligence Committee has subpoenaed Don Jr. That's the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee. What do you make of that?
The Mueller report came out, and they said he did nothing wrong. My son was totally exonerated by Mueller. And my son's a very good person, works very hard. The last thing he needs is Washington, D.C.
Now, of course, Donald Trump Jr. did not cooperate with the Mueller investigation. I mean, look, we know that the committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, wants to talk to Donald Trump Jr. about issues related to the Russia investigation. One example, that infamous 2016 Trump Tower meeting, which Trump Jr. originally testified to Congress that he only told Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort about. According to the Mueller report, though, he told the entire senior campaign staff. So what else did Donald Trump Jr. possibly lie about, and why? Well, he's certainly trying to block Congress from finding anything out. And he's banking on help from one of his father's most ardent supporters these days, Senator Lindsey Graham.
To me, Mueller's the last word for me, so I'm over, I'm done. He testified before the committee, testified to the special counsel.
Okay, let's just be loud and clear about that. Testified to the special counsel did not happen. That is false. And it was not for a lack of trying by Mueller. Mueller very clearly writes about one of the key incidents that he looked at, that Russia meeting. And of that, in the report, he writes, quote, the office spoke to every participant except Veselnitskaya and Trump Jr., the latter of whom declined to be voluntarily interviewed by the office. And then, as you can see, 3 lines of redactions, grand jury related. Are these redactions what Trump is afraid of? Could they reveal Trump Jr. was considered a target or a subject of the special counsel? We simply do not know. But we do know that he didn't voluntarily sit down or answer any questions from the special counsel. Why? Well, the president sure seems to be spooked. He's already making it clear that Congress may never hear from his son again.
Should he fight that subpoena?
Well, we'll see what happens. I'm just very surprised.
So, David, I don't know why Lindsey Graham said that he was, sat down or was interviewed by the special counsel. Lindsey Graham should know. There's no excuse for Lindsey Graham not to know that that's false. So, but I'm going to presume he didn't know and that he wasn't intending to mislead. Does it look to you like Don Jr. has something to hide here?
Well, it certainly gives that indication, especially if he's going to invoke the Fifth Amendment, basically, so he won't incriminate himself. If he hides behind that, I think it causes other political problems, as you just suggested. If he doesn't show up at all, he could be held in contempt and thrown into jail. You have to believe that's not going to happen. But he's, just because he's the president's son does not mean he's above the law, no more than the president is.
So, Juliet, why do you think the committee wants to hear again from Don Jr.? Obviously, there's these possible inconsistencies. There's all these cases that have been referred out. And as it's very clear here, these redactions that come right after they say he refused to be voluntarily interviewed by the special counsel.
Well, it appears that what they're looking at is a determination of whether Don Jr. perjured himself when he testified before them or any of the other committees. And it falls into 2 lines, just as you look at the documents here. And both of them have to do with Volume 1 in the Mueller reports, not the obstruction of justice, but the Russia stuff. One is, of course, the meeting. Exactly. So one is, of course, the Russia meeting in Trump Tower, which Don Jr. tried to minimize and testified that it wasn't a big deal. But, of course, we have evidence and testimony from a whole bunch of other people contradicting that. The second, though, let's not forget, is also Trump Tower Moscow, which was really in Don Jr.'s orbit. He was pushing it with Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen now has testimony out there of which he says, Don Jr., I briefed him almost a dozen times on Trump Tower meeting. That goes to the question of why was the Trump campaign so willing to accommodate Russia during the election? It was because they had business interests that they were presuming they would continue under the belief that Donald Trump would lose. So both of those are huge issues that are simply contradicted by too many others for the Senate committee to ignore. And one would suspect that Don Jr. has to take the fifth so that he doesn't perjure himself.
So John, I want to play something the president said additionally today about Don Jr. and the Mueller report. Here he is.
The Mueller report came out. That's the Bible. The Mueller report came out, and they said he did nothing wrong. The only thing is, it's Oppo research.
He's got schizophrenia when it comes, obviously, to the Mueller report and Mueller, right? Now, sometimes it's the Bible, sometimes it's like a complete load of lies. I mean, I don't know. It depends on the day when you ask him, I suppose, John. But the reality of it is Mueller clearly said Don Jr. would not, voluntarily sit down with him, but Mueller let Don Jr. go without an interview. He didn't push it there. Should that matter to Congress? Do you read anything into that?
Oh, it's a good point you're making, because Congress isn't bound by what Mueller found or didn't find. Congress is free to have its own investigation. They have the right to conduct oversight of the spending of federal dollars, about how the Justice Department is doing its investigations. And if they want to see that the Justice Department properly investigated Donald Trump Jr. for alleged campaign finance violations or collusion itself, they're free to do so. And you're quite right. Also, I think the reporter made the point that since he's a private citizen, since he didn't serve in the government, he doesn't have the right to claim executive privilege or a lot of the other means to keep things confidential that people in the government, like a Don McGahn or a White House counsel, would have available. So,
that's interesting, David, because obviously that could mean that Donald Trump Jr. simply, he's out of luck on this one. He's going to have to eventually do this, and unless they're willing to throw him in jail, literally. And the president today seemed to lament that his son ever got involved. Here's what he said about that.
I was very surprised to see my son. My son's a very good person, works very hard. The last thing he needs is Washington, D.C. He could rather not ever be involved.
What's the risk, David, to the president of his son being forced to testify and come in here again under oath?
I'm sorry, what was the worst thing for the president?
I said, what's the risk for the president? Yeah, the danger for the president.
Oh. The risk is there's more to this story than has come out. And Juliet made two big points about, things that they will want to explore. But what if there's more there behind these redacted issues? I think we need to know that. And Mueller didn't give him a complete pass after all. He did say that he was in violation of campaign laws, but he just didn't think he ought to bring it. Or I'm not sure if he thought he could win the case, but he left it on that. I think the other interesting thing, of course, is the role of Republicans are playing in this. This is the first time we've had a major conservative Republican like Senator Burr, who is well respected, break with the White House. And he must feel some compulsion to do that. But we have to remember that Burr has also told the Washington Post in past days that even if Donald Jr. Was found to be lying to the Senate, he was not inclined to pursue perjury charges. So at some point you have to ask, what is this all about?
Right.
Why are they then calling him?
Especially, right, because if it isn't about whether he perjured himself, then that would mean it is about something else, something we don't know about, something possibly new, right? I mean, that just, to your point, that would be what that means, definitionally. John, look, Don Jr. is in recent days, just one of many examples of Trump trying to stonewall Congress, right? It comes to Don McGahn testifying. It comes to the Mueller report itself. It comes to the backup data associated with it and all of the volumes of that, Don Jr. now. Is the president taking this too far on all these inquiries, just saying no, 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 no?
Look, both branches here have constitutional interests at stake. Congress has the right to conduct oversight under the Constitution, and the president has the right to keep some things secret, such as, I would say, discussions between him and the White House counsel. But what the Supreme Court has made clear, what President Trump can't do is declare a blanket resistance to refuse to send any witnesses to the Hill, to allow any documents to be produced. The Supreme Court has made clear it's a issue-by-issue, document-by-document process. You can't say, I'm just producing nothing. So I think both sides here, from I see, are rushing. They want to have some kind of constitutional confrontation rather than stepping back and trying to reach a deal or an accommodation, which is the way most Congresses and presidents settle these kind of conflicts.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. And David, before we go, happy birthday.
Oh, you're very sweet. Thank you.
You don't look a day over 50.
I know.
I move the marker. Everyone gets a decade as long as they want to hold on to it.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.